Hello, everyone's Forest Focus. The last time it was this good to be a Nottingham Forest fan was arguably 30 years ago when the Reds finished third in the Premier League, or Premiership as it was back then. No one needs reminding where they are in the table currently. So are there parallels between this Forest team and the one which thrived under Frank Clark? Joining me to discuss that and a little bit more is a key cog in the 94-95 team in former Reds midfielder David Phillips. David, good to have you with us this morning. How are you?
Yeah, very well. Thank you very much. Good to be on the podcast, and great to see Forest doing so well so early in the season.
Yes, yeah, it is. It's wonderful. You commentated on the game against West Ham, I think, for the international feed at the weekend. So I'll ask you about that first of all, then crack on with some general stuff around, parallels with 94, 95. I mean, what impressed you most about Forest on Saturday against West Ham?
Just when you think about the result that Forest had against Leicester, and it was an excellent result, and you think, well, you look to the Liverpool game where we won 1-0. It's the first time in over 50 years that we won there, and then we have a home game against Fulham, and we lose that game, which is the first game of the season that we do lose, and so there were obviously thoughts regarding West Ham United, who had a bad time the last time they went away at Tottenham Hotspur, where they got beat 4-1. The first half against Manchester United, they were absolutely awful and could have been out the game, quite easily 4 or 5 below. But they stuck in. They made some changes in the second half, and miraculously they won 2-1 by a very controversial penalty. So you're always thinking, well, is this going to be a side that turns up and plays really well, as West Ham United can do, or is it going to be a side very similar where they imploded against Tottenham Hotspur and then didn't perform in the first half against Manchester United? So it was one of really to see what their setup was all about. And when I saw the lineup, I saw that Jared Bowen was playing up front, Paquetá and Somerville were playing as a little triangle in behind, and I just thought, well, why are they doing that? Antonio, who was a ex-Forest player, left on the bench, and we know that Fulkrug is injured at this moment in time. And I just thought they were there for the taking. They started off quite well, to be honest with you, with the 3 centre halves, but we kept on probing all the time, and you could see how quick we are, in transition. It was good to see that Morgan Gibbs-White was coming back. We didn't take part in the open training session, nor did Elliot Anderson. So we thought who was going to start in that little 10 role. And it was really nice to see that MGW taking part in that. And then when you have somebody like Hudson-Odoi, Anthony Elanga as well, we've got speed merchants there, especially in transition. And the form that Chris Wood is in at this moment in time, you couldn't wish for a better start to the season from a centre forward.
I guess the success is built on solid foundations as well. I know you commentated on us a lot last season, and we looked okay, but we could not defend set pieces. How impressed have you been by that kind of transformation, and what do you think's behind it this season?
Well, the transformation is unbelievable, isn't it? You think about the amount of goals that we conceded, from set pieces. You talk about corners, you talk about free kicks, and when you look at the stats from this year, I think we've only conceded 1 from a set piece. We haven't conceded 1 from a corner. What has gone in there, I'm not quite sure, but I do, because all of a sudden you've got Milinkovic, who's come in, and you've got Murillo. And that combination has been absolutely magnificent so far this year. Aina playing at right back, and Moreno, who's come on loan from Aston Villa. His last game, and you look at what he actually did during the course of the game against West Ham, he was superb. Absolutely amazing. Great first ball for the goal for Chris Wood, but his performance all round was absolutely superb. But the back four, when you look against the West Ham game, they only had a shot against them in about the 44th minute, which, when you look at it, Chris Wood actually deviates that ball away from a goal attempt and does really well. Apart from that, you have a look and think, what has Matt Sells done during the course of those 90 minutes? He hasn't had to do an awful lot. But, as we always turn around and say, you start at your front line. That's where you defend. And when you have guys like that who are working really, really hard, and Chris Wood, when you look at him, you look at his stats for actually his movement during the course of the game in 90 minutes, he's all over the park, and he covers an awful lot of ground. And then when you have the two wide guys in Hudson-Odoi and Alanga, they really complement the two fullbacks really well, and they do help out superbly well. And then when you got Yatesy coming in, who's done really, really well, and Dominguez as well, he's one of those players who gets around all over the park. And when you look at their stats for actually covering kilometres during the course of the game, it's right up there. And that shows how much of a willingness this team is this year to do so well.
So when you look at this team and the team that you were so successful in, I can see that, like, obviously you had a strong defence, a midfield which works hard with yourself, obviously, good wingers, magic up front. I know there's some differences because we don't have a Stan Collymore, but I do kind of see parallels there myself in terms of, what this team's going to do. Everyone knows what their role is. Am I right? Is it or is it completely chalk and cheese between your team and this team?
Well, the difference is that for this season to start off with, Nottingham Forest have done really well to start the season as well as they have done, considering what happened last year as well. And to be third in the Premier League at this present time was something that we weren't at this time 30 years ago. It was only really after the loss against Arsenal that we went on a 13-game unbeaten run, which took us to third place in the Premier League. And that's what really happened with us. We were slow burners to start off with. We got our results. We, a little bit of a roller coaster ride to start off with. But then the last 13 games, we went unbeaten. And that's where the difference is slightly. Whereas this Forest side have started off really, really well. It's now whether or not they can maintain that. They've got a huge game coming up against Newcastle United at the weekend, who, as we know, have done really well. Beat Arsenal last week. And they are going to be tough opponents. So I think the next few games coming up will possibly determine where we're going to be. But talking to the fans before the game, they're absolutely buoyant as to where we are at this present time, possibly thinking that we will stay in the top 10 for the season. But as you know, the season's a long, long season, and things can change. But I hope it doesn't, because everything at this moment in time is going really, really well at the City Ground. And, even though that Nuno has not been on the touchline for the last 3 games, Rui Silva's come in and done a fantastic job. So if Nuno's a little bit superstitious like I am, stay in the stands, Nuno. Let Rui do the job for the time being.
So when did you start to believe in success in that team and other teams you played in as well? You've had success in other teams. At what point do groups of players start to believe something special might be happening?
Well, when, as I mentioned about the game against Arsenal, we went on this fantastic run. And then when you all of a sudden you start having that little bit of a momentum going, you have that belief. And when that belief is in amongst the group of players, anything can happen. And we were not only a good team, but we were a good squad as well. And you mentioned about Stan Collymore. I think, was it 22 or 25 goals he scored that season? Bryan Roy, chipped in with a lot of goals. Lars Bohinen, and then you had the 2 wide players of Stoney and Woney. Stoney became Player of the Year that year. An exceptional season. And when you look at our back unit of Coops, Chetts, Stuart, Pearce, and then Des Little, and with Mark Crossley in goal as well. It was a strong side. It was a very cohesive side, and we didn't concede vast amounts of goals. And we had this belief that if we could keep clean sheets, why not? But really, after that game against Arsenal, the momentum started and it carried on.
You mentioned squad depth there as well as something which is a factor. I guess, is it different now today when you look at, you can make 5 substitutes, and Forest have got a reliance on that in terms of wingers, Sosa and Jota, Taiwo coming off the bench? Is that ever more important these days? If Forest are going to be successful, they're going to need that bench to keep performing.
Yeah, absolutely right. So I'm going to say that it is a vast difference now where you can put 5 subs on. It's virtually, it is half a side you can put back on. But back in those days, it wasn't that as a case. And you're right in what you're saying. There's a great blend in this squad, where really you've got 2 players for every position. And that is really what Nuno has been looking at. We know this all started, and I still go back to Coops, with Steve Cooper. When at one stage we were bottom of the Championship, and then all of a sudden we had this fantastic run and we get promoted. And when you look at the players that he had then, you look at the players that have come in. Milinkovic for me has been fantastic. Big Serbian guy who's done so well with Murillo. Really, really pleased that Murillo has got his Brazilian call-up for the 2 games over in South America. I think it's Venezuela and Ecuador. So I'm really pleased for him. It's just going to be a case now. Okay, I know we're looking towards January, in the January window. We don't want to be losing these players. We want to be keeping these players and see how far we can go this season. Now we've got Edu on board, who's come from Arsenal. I think that he will be looking to try and make sure that Marinakis keeps hold of the players rather than thinking, well, Murillo, 60 to 70 million. I tell you what, he's worth a lot more than that. That's what I'm saying. Milinkovic, he came in for 12 million. I think the pair came for 25 million for both of them. So what would you get for both of them at this present time? I wouldn't want to sell these two guys. They are the main hub, and you talk about having a very strong spine. That's what you have to have. You take it back 30 years. We had a strong spine, but also we had players in wide players, like Woney, Stoney, and Stuart and Des, who were capable of covering each other, working for each other. And, the camaraderie back then was unbelievable, as I'm sure it is now.
What do you make of our wingers, out of curiosity, especially Hudson-Odoi? You could have played in defence. You did play in defence. How hard is it to defend against him? Even though you know what he's going to do, is it still almost impossible to stop him at times when he's really on it?
When he's on it, it's difficult. And you can say that about Anthony Elanga. I know that he doesn't get as much praise as Hudson-Odoi. But when you look at, Elanga with his work rate, etc., he works his socks off. And he was the one who gave the attempt for Hudson-Odoi to score at Liverpool. But Hudson-Odoi last year, you knew what he was going to do. He was always looking to come in off that left wing to slip that ball to the right-hand side and then try and bury it in the top right-hand corner. But what he also does as well, he becomes a player who sometimes can manipulate that ball and go down the left-hand side of the fullback and cross balls as well. So you have a look at him and you think, well, as a fullback, how unpredictable can he be in respect of which way is he going to go? Invariably, you'd say 7 or 8 times out of 10, he wants to come inside all the time. 1 or 2, he'll go down the outside. He is difficult to mark. He's got great pace. He can move that ball. He can shift that ball really, really quickly. I actually called the goal on the weekend because there were so many players inside of that box. I was just saying in commentary, this is for Hudson-Odoi because there's so many people there. Yes, he got a slight deflection at the end, which Fabianski, dived underneath. But it was there. But what I like about this Forest side as well is that they have the versatility to turn around and say, well, we don't always have to knock it in the box. Use a little bit of savvy, as it was with Hudson-Odoi, and to score again. He gets all the praise. Chris Wood gets the praise, and it's one of those games again where it could have been a slight banana skin, but I think the major turning point was Alvarez getting sent off. He doesn't have to make that second challenge on Elanga. Pleased that he did, but if he did look behind him and to his right or to his left, you'd have seen 4 black shirts behind him because Dominguez. I looked at Dominguez when he was on the halfway line, and you could see that he was puffing and thinking, "I need to get into that box," but he was the only one. So Alvarez making that decision to go and make that challenge on Elanga, as a West Ham person, you'd be turning around and saying, well, what the hell is he doing? But as a Nottingham Forest supporter, you'd be thinking, absolute fool. Why do you have to make that challenge? I'm so pleased he made that challenge because when it came into the second half, it was a one-way system. It was a one-way traffic. It could have been 4. It could have been 5. Fabianski's had to make 2 or 3 very good saves. And Matt Sells really hadn't had to do anything apart from that little goal line clearance from Chris Wood in the first half.
Is that a challenge players make when things are going badly and maybe, I don't know if they don't fancy it or not, but minds are clouded? I couldn't see a Forest player making that tackle, but I can see a West Ham player obviously did make that tackle when things are going so badly. Is that a sign that things are very wrong with West Ham in, conversely to Forest?
Yeah, I think so. I think the manager is going to be under immense pressure. Results haven't been good, even though that they were standing quite well in the league before the game at the City Ground. As I mentioned, the bit of a pacing they took at Spurs. It could have been 4 or 5 against Manchester United if they would have finished properly. They won controversially with that penalty. And then against Forest, like I said, you got Paquetá, you got Rodriguez, you got Alvarez. You got 3 guys there who, as far as I'm concerned, are capable of picking up a yellow card and picking up a second yellow card at any given time. I think Paquetá was booked. Not sure about Rodriguez, but obviously Alvarez booked and then sent off. But for me, it's all about discipline, and they lack discipline, and that is something that the manager has to really work on. I thought the 3 centre halves worked quite well for them. But when the first goal went in, again, great ball from Moreno, good header from Chris Wood. Then all of a sudden, you look at transition. Transition, we are so quick in transition. It's frightening. And it would scare most sides in the Premier League, as it did, against Liverpool. And hopefully it will do exactly the same against Newcastle, a few days on the Sunday, when I'm actually guest for the day. So I'm looking forward to coming back to Forest, to the City Ground on Sunday. My wife will be coming, her father will be coming. It'll be the first time she's been to Forest for quite some time. So I'm looking forward to on Sunday as being the guest of the day. And hopefully, fingers crossed, we get another victory, which will be 4 unbeaten.
Just a word for our sponsors, the Trent Navigation. Just a reminder that on Sunday against Newcastle, straight after the game, the Money are playing. It's free entry at the Nav, so it should be a good one. Get down there after the match to hopefully celebrate a win. And then a couple of other things that are on the horizon. There is a happy hour on Wednesday, the 4th of December, when we go to Man City. 30% off all draft beers, £3 cask ales. Pizzas are only £8.50. I'm recording this after speaking to David Phillips, so I didn't ask him what his favourite pizza is. And there is also, if you are a rugby fan, there are offers on throughout the Autumn Rugby Internationals if you watch the game at the NAF, 30% off Guinness and London Pride. So lots going on. We'll have more details on other gigs that are coming up after games. And obviously, you can get your tickets for the Rick Parfitt gig from gigantic.com. Right, back to matters with David Phillips, but thanks as ever to the NAV for their support. Lovely stuff. Just on a couple of bits around the Newcastle game. They're coming off the back of a very good result. I don't know if they've played massively well this season, but they're obviously a strong side. How tough a game would you rank this one for Forest?
I think it's a very tough game. They will be abundance of confidence, especially after beating Arsenal. You've got Isak, who's in good form at this present time. And when you look at their setup, you look at their lineup, etc., they've got players, they've got quick players. Again, you look at transition. Anthony, he's one of those players who can cause all sorts of problems. So it's going to be one of those games, really, where the back four for Forest have really got to be on their full mettle.
There's 2 players for Forest I wanted to ask you about. We've touched on Chris Wood a little bit. He's got 8 goals already this season. And I keep thinking, well, he can't keep doing it. But I wonder if he can actually. And also specifically in this game, obviously it's his former club. He scored a hat-trick up there last time we played them. Do you believe that he can, hit at least 15, I imagine, but maybe 20 Premier League goals this season?
I think with the season so young as it is, to score 8 goals, he's only behind Erling Haaland. But there's no reason why he cannot go and score 15. He can go and score 20, as long as we get that provision of crosses coming in from the wide areas. You saw the goal that he scored against Leicester, where he was able to grab hold of the ball and then turn on a sixpence back in the old money, and scored a great goal there. So it's not just about Chris Wood heading goals in. It's just all-round play in and around that 18-yard box. Slightly different when Stan Collymore was playing, because Stan had a lot more pace than Chris Wood. Chris Wood, has got pace, but Stan had blistering pace. And then when you had the likes of Bryan Roy as well to accompany him, it was a difficult twosome to play against. But Chris Wood has done really, really well. And yes, against his former club, I'm sure that he'll be looking to try and convert one again, maybe two, who knows. But I'm not too phased about Chris Wood scoring a goal on Sunday. All I'm concerned is about Forest getting 3 points. And if it means Chris Wood not scoring, then I'll take that. But for me, 15 goals is a very reachable target. And then you're looking for the 3 behind. We're talking about Elliot Anderson as well, who's come in and done really, really well. Gibbs White, Hudson Odoi, Alanga, and then you want other people to go and chip him a little goal since he's been there, and everyone wants him to score a goal. Milinkovic as well, these sort of people, especially when it comes to set pieces, want to try and chip in as much as possible. But while Chris Wood is scoring, let it be, let him keep going.
Would you bring Anderson back into the team against his former club, or does it really even matter as much who starts games these days? Do we obsess about it too much as fans?
I think we get obsessed about it. People turn around and they talk about, the amount of games that are being played. Well, let's go back 30 years. There are an awful lot of games being played. If you're not in Europe, you've still got cup competitions, etc. I know there are more cup competitions now. There's, when you look at the Champions League and you look at the Europa League, the way the setup is sorted, the way the format is done. You've got the EFL Trophy, you've got the FA Cup, but you've got massive squads nowadays. So you can chop and change whenever you need to. It's, for me, down to the sports scientists. They will always configure who is running out of breath, who needs to be replaced, and so on, and they will advise the manager, etc. As I said, with 2 of them who didn't appear in the open training session, Anderson and Morgan Gibbs White, we were thinking, well, I think that Anderson will start the game. But when I saw MGW's name on the team sheet, I was really surprised, but pleasantly happy to see that. But don't get me wrong, Elliot Anderson is a really good player. 21 years of age. I tell you what, he's got a fantastic future.
Are you pleasantly surprised as well by the success of the Yates-Dominguez axis? When you consider that Sangare and Danilo started the season's first choices, are you surprised or shocked to any degree by how well Yates and Dominguez have done these last few games?
I think what you have to understand is that they've come in and they've had to take an opportunity because of circumstances. And it's very sad that, with Danilo virtually being up for the whole season as such, you have to understand that with the squad rotation and squad that is implemented into the side, you have to have these sort of players that are going to step in given an opportunity. Ryan Yates, for me, is one of those players who's come through the system. Yes, I know at times, he's been given a little bit of stick, etc. But I'll tell you what, he gives 110% every time he puts a red shirt on for Nottingham Forest. And, I'm really impressed with his attitude, his application. I thought he performed really, really well against West Ham United. And the 2 of them, they're there to mop up the pieces. They're mopping up what happens when things go awry up front, if we haven't scored, etc. And then you look at the counter. They will go and swap. They will go and move across. If Moreno goes down one side, Aina goes the other. They will go and slot across. Very similar to what I did when I was at Nottingham Forest. It was a case with Frank Clark had always said to me that he didn't want me going across the halfway line. And so that was a job that I had to go and do, like when Pearce went, or Des Little, or Brian Laws went. It's just go and cover those areas. And those 2 players have covered those areas really, really well. And we know that Dominguez is a massive favourite amongst the fans, and so is Ryan Yates. And it's good to see that somebody with home talent doing so well.
Just lastly, because I know you've got to go very shortly for you coaching yourself for your team, your academy shortly. Your team with Collymore, Bohinen, Wone, they in particular could score a goal out of nothing. Bryan Roy as well. Do you see enough in this Forest team from goals from other areas beyond Chris Wood doing it? Have we got enough of an X factor when you look at Gibbs White, Hudson-Odoi, players like that to carry us forward?
Why not? I would like to see maybe Anthony Elanga getting on the score sheet a little bit more. Morgan Gibbs White as well. But when you look at Morgan Gibbs White and what he actually gives to the side, he actually assists on a lot of goals, and his play is superb. I think it was Gibbs White who put the ball through for Moreno to start off with. So he's part and parcel of where the source of the goals comes from. Yes, we'd like other people to chip in, as I mentioned previously, and that's what it's going to be all about. Because at some stage, is the well with Chris Wood going to dry up? Possibly. You might go a few games where he doesn't score, but at this moment in time, with the form that he's in, why not keep on going? But yes, Hudson-Odoi, was he 7 or 8 goals last year? Elanga, not so many. Morgan Gibbs White, not so many. So really, with those 3 supporting players, we need them to chip in with a little bit more. We need them to get 7 or 8 goals per season at least. And there's no reason, with the quality that those 3 have, why they can't do it.
Just lastly, then, before we let you go, you've hinted at this a couple of times about whether you think it's sustainable and how high you think Forest can finish. Are you saying the upcoming games will dictate that, and it's a bit too early to say when you look at Newcastle, Arsenal, City on the pretty immediate horizon?
Yeah, they're difficult games. When you look at the Premier League, they're difficult games all over the park. You take Bournemouth, for example. Who would have thought what's happened with Bournemouth in their last 2 appearances? Who they've gone and beaten, Arsenal and Manchester City. So it proves that anyone can beat anyone at this moment in time. So yes, tough games coming up for City, for Forest. But there's no reason why not. They're in good form at this moment in time. I mentioned the little bit of a relapse they had against Fulham after doing so well against Liverpool. And there's no reason why they cannot sustain the form that they're in at this present time. I'm sure that Nuno will get back into the technical area shortly. As I mentioned, Rui Silva's done a fantastic job. But while it's buoyant and while things are materialising and while things are all working the right way, why can't it continue? Yes, you might get little blips along the way, but this Forest side, aided by the crowd, who once again immense at the weekend, they bring the 12th man into the equation. We always talk about the 12th man. We always talk about the crowd. And the crowd at the City Ground is phenomenal. My wife hasn't been to the City Ground before, and she's going to listen to this, and it's something to behold. And I can't wait to be there Sunday.
That is a lovely note to end on. If you have enjoyed this, as ever, do us a favour, hit like, hit subscribe. You can become a channel member. Give us a lovely review on iTunes and Spotify. We'll be back tomorrow with our West Ham keep saying that, Newcastle preview in full. So do join us for that. But in the meantime, David, thank you very much for joining us, and hope to see you on Sunday.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Have a good day, everyone. If we don't see you tomorrow, we shall see you soon.